Welcome back to the Global Legal AI podcast. I'm Jean Gunn, founder and host. Today's guest sits at the intersection of justice, innovation, and real-world impact. I'm joined by Sateesh Nori, a lawyer, teacher, and legal innovator who has spent decades serving communities, leading legal teams, and building practical tools to strengthen access to justice. What makes Satesh's perspective valuable is it is grounded in the frontline experience. He has seen how the systems works for people, and just as importantly, how it fails them. He is thinking about how technology and new ways of working can make legal services stronger. Thank you for joining me today. Let's start at the beginning, shall we?
Sure. Thank you, Jean. It's very nice to be here.
You spent many years working in legal aid before moving into innovation and technology. What first drew you into legal aid work, and what kept you there in those early years?
Two things drove me into legal aid work. One is that I wanted to help people. I always saw the underdog, the underprivileged person, as somebody who needs a fair shot. The second reason was I wanted to be a lawyer. When I read about lawyers and watched movies, they were always doing noble things. The movie Gandhi came out when I was, and my parents were keen on the principles of Gandhi and nonviolence and advocacy through change and law. These things drove me to become a lawyer. Unfortunately, what I realized over many years working as a lawyer is that I couldn't help all the people that needed my help. Even if I cloned myself 10 times, I still wouldn't be able to help all the people because the system is broken. The way our legal system is set up in the United States and in many other places favors people who have connections and influence and money and power, and that's not fair. So that led me into the legal tech space to explore whether there are other ways that we can deliver this kind of legal help to ordinary people.
Right. It's actually very heartening to know that there are still very kind people like yourself. When you look back now, are there like particular experiences or moments that really shape how you understand justice and the role of law in people's lives?
Yeah, when I worked at Legal Aid, one of my jobs was to go to the courthouse in Queens. Queens is a part of New York City in which many, many immigrants live. So Queens has 151 languages spoken in it. And so it's the borough into which many people first encounter America. That's where JFK Airport is. And so my parents included, many people land in Queens, they find an apartment, they try to start their lives, they try to find the American dream.
Right.
And so my job was to work in the courthouse and to talk to people who had legal problems about their apartments. And one of the things about New York City is that it's very expensive to live there. So the rent is a huge burden. Even middle class people pay 40 to 50% of their income on rent.
Wow.
People fall behind in the rent. If they lose their job, get sick, or have a family emergency, rent is the first thing they miss. In my job, I was helping people facing eviction because they owed rent. I saw over and over again is people didn't know about the solutions that were available. They couldn't access legal claims and defenses easily. Sometimes they didn't speak English or were unaware of the court system. Even when they got a lawyer like me, sometimes it was too late. For every one or two people I could help, there were 9 or 10 I couldn't. And that was extremely frustrating. That was a trigger for me to look for a better way to deliver this information to people. We're in an era where AI tools can make these issues simple. They don't need to wait for a lawyer. It's not best to be desperate and wait for a lawyer. Many people want a solution on their phone or tablet or information translatable into their native language, a way to help them fill out forms. These simple things can save so many people. That's what led me down this new path.
It keeps the fire burning. We
When you
need help.
see,
And then I've always,
when you meet young kids or
right,
elderly people, immigrants who just have nothing but hope, and to
right.
see that hope diminished or destroyed because the system is
The world is unfair and life is unfair. So as your career actually developed, at what point do you feel a shift from focusing purely on the frontline legal work to thinking about systems, innovation, and technology?
yeah, as I grew older and more experienced, I thought about what the next 10, 20, 30 years of my career might look like. During COVID, everything stopped. And we had to look inside and outside ourselves and think, what's left? What is this all about? If I do the same work for the rest of my life that is meaningful, but is that the best I can do? Or is there another way to think about what I learned and apply it in a way that I can scale that information, that experience? And that's when I learned about AI tools, saw my first RAG and the way language can be processed and delivered and rules can be applied to facts very simply. And I thought if I could apply myself to these tools, I could help 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more people. That's why I changed my direction.
That actually acts like a springboard and actually helps frame the work you are doing right now and where law and technology actually comes together in very practical ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, technology is a way, law is a language, and technology
Right.
is a very simple way to translate, decode that language for ordinary people.
Moving on, you work closely with legal services organizations and community lawyers. So when you talk about legal innovation in that context, how do you actually define in a way that actually makes sense on the ground rather than sounding abstract?
A lot of people are hearing so much about AI,
Right.
and there is this AI hype, and there's this AI bubble that people say might be coming in 2026. There's so many AI solutions. So many people are trying to make a lot of money
Right.
based upon AI.
Yes.
And in the nonprofit space, they don't have a lot of money. When they hear about all this hype, sometimes they turn away from it. They say, this is just hype, it's not helpful. I try to focus people on the mission. Why are you doing this work? If your goal is to help people, why wouldn't you want to help more people? If you want to help people in a more meaningful way, and there's a way to do that, why wouldn't you try? The cost is low. There are many tools that are free
Yes.
or very cheap as long as you maintain security and confidentiality.
Yes.
You can benefit from these things that are easy to adopt and learn. That's the way I pitch it. Ignore all this hype. People think AI can drive cars,
Yes.
cure cancer, predict the weather, and
Yeah, sure.
colonize Mars. But
Yeah.
what about writing an email, scheduling a meeting, drafting a legal memo, or helping translate something? These are simple things. They don't require millions of dollars. They don't require any extra skill. And so my pitch to many people in the legal field is you can try it, benefit from it, and it can help you relieve a lot of stress. Comes from repetitive work that is low value but
Yeah.
high volume. The
Yes.
things that we do every day that are tedious and stressful and almost meaningless, but we have to do them just to move everything a bit further. That's my pitch.
So I think in my perspective for let's say because I'm an in-house legal counsel, so what I do I try to management of internal stakeholders, right? It's also part and parcel of this job, nature of this job. So what we have to do is not to regurgitate the law to them. We actually have to
Mhm,
break down
mhm.
in simple English, concise manner. And I find having using an AI tool is really useful. You can create a table. It's actually visual information is easier to digest especially for non-legal people. It saves a lot of time, a lot of conversation about AI in law, sometimes with excitement, sometimes with anxiety. I believe we both can agree is there's a lot of different school of thoughts out there. And so from your
Yeah,
perspective, what is the most meaningful way AI can support legal services and improve access to justice?
I think one of the principles of law and due process is the ability of ordinary people to understand the law. If we have laws that people don't understand or cannot access, then they are meaningless. They might as well not exist. The problem is we have this gap between the laws that exist in many places. In New York, we have strong laws to protect people. Few understand the law, how courts work, and so on. If you think of the law simply as information, then the problem is how do you transmit that information to the people who need it the most?
Right.
And so the reason we have lawyers is lawyers transmit that information from the laws to the people. But AI is a very good way of transmitting information. I think it is the second best way in human history to transmit information. The first one being the printing press, the
Right.
ability to replicate books, the internet, and AI to deliver information. We don't need lawyers doing simple tasks, explaining laws, translating laws, or helping fill out forms
Right.
to file court cases. You should understand and do it on your own. The best use case for AI is translating and transmitting information. Almost everyone has a phone. So why not let that be the central point of this kind of information? Why not allow AI tools to explain, translate, and apply the law for people to solve their everyday problems? That
Right.
might mean fewer lawyers, but having lawyers was never an end of mine. I'd rather help people and not have lawyers exist. If these problems were solved, I could be a school teacher or work in a bookstore or
Yeah,
play
yeah.
pickleball or whatever. Only exist because there's a gap. And that's
Right.
really tragic.
Yeah. Some days for myself, I wish I'm just dog sitting like 10 dogs instead of, reviewing contracts. But don't tell my boss.
Yeah.
This brings me to my next question. Because I've seen you have created tools like your
Mhm.
RoxanneAI. And I think it's a,
Yeah.
how do you pronounce that? Is it a Zitron or Depositron?
The Tron.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. So would you
Yeah.
want to share more about these tools and what specific
Yeah.
problems would you actually try to solve when you build them?
The place I start is where lawyers aren't working at all. That seemed to be a nice area to address. There's two areas in New York City I encountered in my 20 years as a lawyer for low income tenants. One is housing conditions. So people who don't have heat, it's very cold today in New York and in the winter. And when people's heat doesn't work, they can get sick. It's very
Right.
dangerous for kids and for elderly people, people who already have other illnesses. And the landlords often fail to maintain the heat because they save money by not
Right.
providing heat.
Right.
But for a tenant, it's hard to get a lawyer. It's very hard to, a lawyer costs thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And the free lawyers don't work on these problems because they're focusing on evictions. So I thought, why not build a RAGBot, an AI tool into which I can upload all the knowledge and resources I know and create a chatbot people can interact with and get answers to questions like, how do I get my heat on? How do I get my landlord to deal with roaches and mice or fix my elevator? The brilliance of a bot like this is it's trained on the knowledge base. It works 24 hours a day. It's always on. And we can translate into any language that people speak. And so in applying something like this, we not only help the people who aren't getting any other help, we help the system altogether because there are fewer people with problems who are in crisis. And those problems in crisis are bad for everybody. They take up resources, they take up time, they cause other problems for families and kids and elderly people and health issues and schooling issues and job issues.
Right.
So that's how Roxanne works. It's so simple. It's a RAG bot that's trained on housing conditions. Working for a year. Today is the 1 year anniversary of
Oh,
Roxanne.
that's
On
the
January
anniversary.
5th, 2025, 1 year anniversary of Roxanne. It's helped thousands of people. The value of Roxanne is that anybody can build this in any city and help a lot of people. People aren't doing that. We can do more of this. It costs almost nothing, just tokens or an AI foundation model, pennies, dollars. The other one is Depositron. And it basically helps people pay a security deposit when they rent an apartment to get that deposit back after they move out of the apartment. This is a big problem in New York because landlords refuse to return the money that people spend
Right.
on a security deposit to take in an apartment. And they force the tenants to fight in court. Many tenants don't have the time, money, or the knowledge to go to court. And so the landlords just keep that money. And in New York, my estimate is that this is a $100 million problem every year. Depositron helps by asking 5 simple questions, prepares a letter, and allows you to attach photographs to show you didn't do any damage that requires the landlord to keep your money. It's so simple. And this can be replicated and scaled to any place on earth where this is a problem. Tenants have this powerful vehicle to force the landlord to negotiate or respond. Tools like that show not only is this easy to do, it's cheap,
And very practical.
it can help so many people who have these problems, rich or poor. It can help change these practices, these bad practices that exist
Yeah.
where people who don't have power and knowledge are exploited.
And if you had to name one misconception lawyers have when technology enters the conversation, what would that be?
There's this theory by Richard Susskind, a legal futurist, and he says lawyers suffer from something called the not us mentality, which is to say, these things are happening and they're going to change the way people work, but not us. We're special. We're smarter. We're better trained. We have skills that cannot be taken over by machines. And that's false. There's nothing that lawyers do most of the time that is so special. In a very fractional percentage of the time, we're doing extremely difficult work that requires expertise.
Right.
But most of the work we do is not that difficult. It's not special in any way. And we have to get rid of that notion. But the problem is there's a business model that's built upon that we're so special that we can charge so much money that, we are essential to any transaction or deal or litigation or problem. And, that has to change. If we have fewer lawyers, that's okay. I don't care. The average person would agree. And nobody likes lawyers, just a necessity because our system is broken.
I actually agree with that perspective. For contract negotiation, we try not to bring out the big guns, which is the legal.
Yep.
It's just a human psychology thing. Why are you bringing legal in? Then you will be apprehensive, defensive, skeptical,
Yep.
right?
And it costs more.
And I want to zoom out a little here because throughout your career, innovation has been anchored in community needs rather than technology. Drawing on your years serving tenants and other vulnerable communities, what challenges remain the most urgent today when it comes to access to justice?
Yeah, one thing that I hear all the time is that people are the gold standard of access to justice. We need lawyers, social workers, and paralegals. And technology is a tier of service delivery. That's a big challenge to overcome. You're saying rich people get human lawyers and poor people get robots. Most people just want solutions to their problems. They don't need a lawyer or know that a lawyer is a way to get that solution. If they can get the solution more quickly, they would rather do that than engage a lawyer, pay a lawyer, wait for a free lawyer, go through a bureaucracy or a tedious process for help. That's a big challenge. When I talk to community groups, legal services organizations, or law schools, I convey, let's focus on the problem and center the person, not the lawyer. A lot of what happens in my space, we center the lawyer. What tools do lawyers need? How can we give AI to lawyers? I think that's useful. And there's a lot of money to be made doing that, selling lawyers more tools and toys. Really, the way to solve the problem is how do we go directly to the person with the problem and avoid the lawyer? Anyone who has a lawyer is in a crisis. What about 6 months earlier when the problem first arises? What if you could resolve that problem with the right information at that point?
Right.
Wouldn't that be better? And that's a challenge. It's difficult to convey that. I'm not against lawyers. I'm for solutions. Sometimes solutions don't need lawyers, right? They don't require lawyers.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's actually a very interesting perspective because I think it actually stems from the problem of the unfairness in the world, the imbalance between the rich and the poor. The rich have to engage a lawyer, and it feels like a win to them. Most of the time, it is compared to the poor who doesn't have this funding, the resources. So I see your perspective rightfully to bypass this lawyer and just go straight into the access to these people who are really in need of this help. Right. Do you think these challenges are mainly about funding or resources, or are there deeper structural issues we are struggling to address?
Yeah, it was a funding question because people don't have the technology. These platforms are expensive and there's so many barriers, internet access, things like that. But I think those problems are going away. Even the rickshaw drivers have mobile phones. Technology barriers don't exist anymore. People can access information. The other challenges are structural. The courts aren't meant for people to go on their own. People feel insulted when try to access information, file a form, or represent themselves.
Right.
The courts, the judges, the lawyers there all look down upon people who try to help themselves. And that's because the system is set up for lawyers. Another thing Richard Susskind says is courts are a service, not a place. Services can be provided online, on mobile devices, by telephone. They don't require people to go to buildings and wait for help and navigate a complex process. So we need to change those ways that we think about these things, both how to solve problems and the problems themselves, and who do we center when we try to address these problems.
Right. And your answers touch not just on systems, but on people, very people-centric, the core of the problem itself. Brings me to your leadership and teaching experience. You have led teams in fragile social justice environments with limited resources and high stakes. What leadership principles have guided you?
It's difficult to answer because I'm learning every day, trying to understand how to be a leader, how to reach people, how to inspire people. But I think, the first principle is just be open to good ideas all the time.
Right.
And if you see a good idea, adopt it, try it. Maybe you can change and be better. And that's something that even for me, it took 20 years to do. I had to change everything, my job, perspective, assumptions. These things are hard. Be open to change. Our world is changing quickly. Lawyers are very reluctant, stubborn, and conservative. And I think that is a big obstacle in the space that we're both in. It's like convincing people you can change and do better, be more effective and happier because you'll have a bigger impact.
It's about the mindset shift, be 1% better each day.
Learn something new every day, challenge yourself.
As a professor and mentor, what do you wish the next generation of lawyers understood earlier about community-centered legal practice and public interest work?
There's a big question. What are law schools teaching people? What will future lawyers be working on? Are they ready for the AI legal world? I think they're not. Go back to the roots. Why did you become a lawyer? If you wanted to help people work in your community, do that. Go back to face-to-face work. Talk to people. Go to the courts. Try to address real problems for people and avoid this corporate path that may be attractive now, but may not exist in 5 years. That's my lesson to lawyers and law students.
Before we wrap up, I would love to hear your thoughts on where all this is heading, and because AI is being more integrated into everyday's legal work, how do you see legal aid and community law evolving over the next few years?
I think that we in the community lawyering space are going to be more specialized, and the general issues will be addressed by AI. And so maybe we will be doing more appeals and higher level policy work and fringe cases. because everyday cases will be resolved much more easily because people
Right.
will have solutions at hand that are cheap and efficient.
Right.
And so, again, that might mean that there are fewer lawyers, or the law industry is going to be different. It won't be as hierarchical.
Right.
It'll be smaller, but more spread out. There will be more access, hopefully, to lawyers who are specialists, in addition to more access to legal information that people can use on their own. That's my hope.
If you can share one message with legal, policy, and technology leaders about the future of justice, what do you think that would be?
I think the message is to center the person, not the lawyer, not the nonprofit, not the courts, not the judges, and think about legal problems from the perspective of a family member, a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, and say, how would they navigate this? They don't have money, they don't have time, they have other issues in their lives. How do we make it as simple as possible and give them that help as early in their problem as possible? And I think a lot of that is what AI can do. If we keep thinking about lawyers and courts, we will be in the same place. There is this great thing that Henry Ford said: if you ask people what they want, they'll tell you they want faster horses because they can't imagine car. We have to get out of building faster horses, just adding AI to the things that we already do, and think about new ways to deliver justice, legal help, information to people. That's hard to center the person, not the lawyer.
That will be the key takeaway: center the people, not the lawyer.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Sateesh, thank you so much for an insightful and grounded conversation. Your work is actually a very powerful reminder that innovation is not just about the technology, but improving systems and structures that support people. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who cares about justice and legal innovation, and more importantly, as Sateesh said, the people itself. See you in the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye.